Hi everybody, and today what I'm going to talk about is letter writing made easy. My name is Warren Wint, lead trainer for Total Success Training. I do lots of training courses. Two of the training courses that fill most of our delegates with fear are presentation skills, where you have to stand up and talk to people, and this one, letter writing. It's one I've been doing for over 20 years, and the reason why people fear this course is because when you actually have to write a business letter, it's going to be analysed by the person who reads it, and hopefully hits the mark. Also, it could be analysed by those at work as well, those who will actually proofread it, copy read it, analyse it, let you know whether it's right or wrong. And written communication is something which some of us feel very nervous, self-conscious about. Now, in this short video, what I'm going to show you is how to start to think about writing and make it a much more easy, effective, fluid and comfortable process. If you follow a few of the steps that we're taking today, you will find it makes a big difference to your letter writing. So let's start off. What's the first thing you need to think about if you're going to write a letter or an email? Well, first thing is step one. We've broken down into two steps. And step one is, what am I trying to achieve? Why am I writing? What do I want to do? Now, before you put finger to keyboard, pen to paper, what you must do is determine what it is that you're writing to, what you want to achieve. Now, if you're going to start to do this process, whether it's an email, whether it's a letter, you've got to know what is it that. And now the focus is not just on what you want to achieve, but what actually happens once that email or letter has been read. Because you've got to take yourself out of your own experience and put it into the experience of the person who's reading what you've written to them. Make sure that you've got a specific objective. If you know what you're trying to achieve, and the letter must be written to achieve that, ask yourself what you want your reader to do. Having read it, now there's two things you've got to think about in relationship. We'll talk about that later on. There's what we call the task, what you want somebody to do, and the relationship, how somebody feels about the correspondence, relationship between you, the writer, and then the reader. However, what you want to be able to think about specifically is, as soon as that email or letter is read, what is the next part of the process? What does that person do? Do they go off and do what you want them to do? Do they go off and do exactly what you want them to do? Take the action that you have written about in the way you want them to do it, or do they do something completely different? Now, this will be more pertinent if you're talking about complaint letters, letters where you have to give somebody bad news. What you might get from this, and some of you who are viewing this, who write complaint letters or you give bad news, might recognise the fact that you've written a letter to somebody and all they do is write back, ignoring what you've said or arguing with you. And you're thinking, don't these people get it? Well, the thing is, it might be that the communication sent to them is not as complete as possible. You've got to be very clear about your objective. Just give an example. It doesn't have to be a letter or an email which is emotive. It could be an informational letter that you send off to people. I'm going to read you something. I've got two bits of correspondence here. I'm going to read you these. One was sent to me years ago by my bank. Let's call it the New Bank PLC. It is a bank everybody knows, but I'm going to call it the New Bank PLC. And I printed off a letter. This was sent to me back, must be about 10 years ago. I'm going to read you some of this letter. And while I'm reading this, what I'm going to ask you to think about is, why was this letter sent to me? Dear Warren, since the new bank was founded in 1857, we have continually sought to adapt to the changing and evolving needs of our customers and the changing environment. Today, with more than 1,700 offices, we're proud to be serving local communities throughout the United Kingdom Channel Islands. You may have seen a mention in the press and elsewhere recently about a recent change of identity to the new bank, and I'm pleased to share with you the rationale behind this change. We are marketing ourselves as the Newer Bank PLC. We became member of the Newer Bank Group in 2007. Our group membership has set us apart from our competitors and enabled us to pass on the benefits of being a global company to our customers. These include the ability to provide specific products which reflect customers' needs and a commitment to continually improve service standards. By this stage, I hope you are going, oh, I was reading this, and remember this is a 2-page, I've only got to half of the first page here, because it's a 2-page letter, and I'm thinking, why have you written this to me? Basically, it seems to be the only thing you want to tell me is you have now merged and changed your name. That's all you're telling me, but you've now sent me a 2-page letter, which unfortunately I'm paying for the fees you charge me, and this is what we call, a great example of what we call a chairman's letter. Nobody bothered to tell the person who wrote this letter that it was absolutely useless. Now, if you were to write a letter like this, you've got to think about, what am I trying to achieve? I want people to know we have changed our name, your money is still secure, stay with us, we've got some new products. Simple, concise, English, to the point, everybody understands. You're not focusing with this letter on the sender, the messenger, you're focusing on the message, because this message is confused, the objective is confused, and what you need to do is have a clear message. Now that's a letter. I'm going to read you an email which was sent. Please tell me what you think this is about. I'd like to request a discussion with you, please. I'm looking for an agency type relationship with a sales training, in brackets using methodology, close brackets, company in the UK. Our organisation has an opportunity/revenue management application with which we have been successful in the USA using a joint approach with a sales consultancy. The technology was used to reinforce a methodology and hence enhance a proposition. Can we arrange a brief discussion, please? My mobile number is at the base of this email. Now, it only got to the second paragraph. It's just a very short email. By the time I got to that point, I'm thinking, what do they want? Now, this is a point. As soon as I've read this, I'm thinking, what do they want? Why have they sent this to me? Not, oh, I will ring them up. I will actually find out what they're offering me. I'm too confused about what they're. This message is confusing. And if a message is confusing, nobody's going to take any action. I don't know if it was the mass mailed email message, but it was absolutely useless in terms of that. I'm thinking again of the messenger, not the message. Now, step 1, what am I trying to achieve? What do I want the reader to do immediately after read the email or letter? And once you've decided your objective, you've got to move on to stage 2. Stage 2, step 2, what shall I say? Now, this is the thing about constructing a letter which is productive and professional. A lot of the letters we write these days are templated. And there's nothing worse than getting a templated letter, dear sir, dear madam, in response to your letter written on, very impersonal, and if this is a letter in a correspondence where I'm already in a bad mood, it's going to make me even angrier. You've got to think about what you need in the letter. And one of the best ways to do this is to think about what you need to include. And the best technique to include this is to brainstorm what you need in the letter. Use what we call a mind mapping approach, where you set out the objective of a letter and you then write all the key topics around there that you need to include, and then you sequence them in numbers. You have to think about it as a complete letter, and it has to flow. There has to be a beginning, middle and end to the letter, and to actually do a brainstorm of a letter on a piece of paper allows you to very quickly determine what you need to include and the order, specific order. If it flows, it means that there is a sequence, there is a flow, there is a recognised order to the points that you're trying to make. If you're responding to a letter from a complaint, you would start off with a thank you for your letter. You would then continue with the reason for the situation that has occurred. You would give some facts, some reasons and rationales behind it. You would acknowledge the situation for the other person. You would then talk to them about what you are doing in the future, what they can do in the future. You may finish off with some form of action that they can take, the further recommendations or conclusions, and you finish off in a productive and positive way. Remember, if you're writing to people, you've got to get right what we call the task and relationship. I mentioned this earlier. What you need to say needs to be clear. No mixed messages in a letter or an email, especially in an email where if there's quite a few items, they may, by the time you get to the main point, they won't have bothered, they'd have skimmed past it and gone on to the next email. But you've also got to get what we call a relationship right. When you read something, we will process it emotionally. And when we process something emotionally, it will allow us when we process something emotionally, what we do is we think about it in terms of how we feel about it. If we feel very strongly about it, positively, we'll feel good. If we feel very strongly negatively, how dare you say this to me? How dare you put this in there? You've got to think about how you want the person to feel, not necessarily do. So you've got to get what we call the task and relationship element of communication right. Get that right. And if you want to send a letter to somebody and say this is the end of a correspondence, they've got to make that choice as to, okay, well, they've explained the situation to me. I know what the situation is. I know what they're prepared to do. Is it worth me writing it? They've dealt with it in a very human and compassionate way, very empathetic to my needs. I'll let it go. That way you've satisfied that letter. However, if they think, who do you think you are sending me a letter like this? Right, I'm going to write you another letter. All you're going to do then is get what we call communication ping pong. They write to you, you write back to them. Each person gets more and more angry, produces nothing. A good communicator produces results, and a good effective letter will do that. Get your task and relationship right. One of the last technique I'll give you today is make sure your letters are complete. And one of the greatest techniques I've ever learned from that was what we call the what, how, why, when, who and where process. Our communication is based in the past and the future. There is a bit of present, but in terms of letters you talk about what has happened, when it happened, who it happened, why it happened, where it happened. It's a bit like reading an article in a newspaper. And when you write a letter, you will focus on what's happened, how it happened, who it happened to, when it happened, but you're also going to move the communication into the future. When things are going to be done, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. More importantly, why it needs to be done. So you fill in that area of criteria. Who's involved, where it's going to happen. You move from past to future, covering these building blocks of what, how, why, when, who, and where. That way, if you tick these off as you're going through, and if you write a letter which says what needs to be done, who's going to be involved, how you need to do it, why it's important and the reasons being, and when it needs to be done, what you've got is a very, very well written letter and complete in all the details. And you can send the letter off, send the email off, the person reads it, understands what's happening, there's no confusion, no ambiguity, no mixed messages, and hopefully they'll do exactly what you want them to do as a result of an email or letter. Follow these small, simple techniques, your letter writing will be much better, much more effective, much more productive. You will be able to compose letters, write letters and get the right result first time and every time. Thanks very much for listening, and good luck with your letters.